There was a man who sat each morning in quiet for 27 days. Same hour, same seat. No phone, no affirmation tracks, no vision boards. He simply looked into the void and smiled. Friends murmured that he'd lost his edge. Mentors fretted he was falling behind. Then, on day 28, without him reaching out, without effort, without launching anything, 3 opportunities he had imagined for years landed in his inbox. Strange, unexplained, almost effortless. But was it random? What nobody noticed across those 27 days was that he wasn't idle. He was dismantling the frequency that had blocked his flow for years. He was loosening the identity that equated doing with worth. The belief that more hustle equals faster results. He stopped performing for the universe and started listening. Here's a truth most people never hear. The quantum field doesn't respond to your actions. It responds to something quieter, deeper, and far more potent. And most people miss that entirely. That's why they burn out. That's why they loop the same timeline. That's why they follow every right step yet feel disconnected, unfulfilled, invisible. They are fluent in action. The field speaks only in frequency. And here's the twist: not every frequency matters. It's the signature you broadcast when no one watches. When you aren't trying to manifest, scripting, or hunting for signs. That's when the universe actually hears. In physics terms, this isn't woo-woo, it's coherence. Your body is a transmitter, thoughts electric, heart magnetic. Together they create a vibrational signature that sends your state to the field. Not your requests, not your words, but your actual state. So here's the unsettling part: you may be doing everything right, while unconsciously broadcasting, it's not working. You might script your dream life with precision while radiating desperation. You may visualize abundance while your nervous system still runs survival patterns. That invisible contradiction prevents timelines from collapsing. This isn't blame, it's precision awareness. Once you know what the field actually hears, you stop wasting energy trying to coerce it. You begin speaking its language embodiment. The man who sat in silence was not lazy. He was recalibrating. He was remembering something most of us lose under the noise of doing. You don't earn alignment. You return to it. And that return can't be faked. It must be felt. Most people manifest with a language the field doesn't decode: words, strategies, hustle, rituals. The field is not logical, it's vibrational. It doesn't interpret what you do, it reads the energy from which you do it. So ask yourself, if you stopped external effort today, would your energy still be magnetic enough to pull your future toward you? That invisible truth is what this piece unpacks. It's not about doing less to get more. It's about becoming someone who no longer vibrates lack, who stops performing for manifestation, who stops asking the field to deliver, and instead becomes the version of self the field cannot ignore. By the end of this journey, you won't guess why things don't show up. You'll know the signal you've been transmitting and exactly how to tune it from static into symphony. But we must go deeper. Next, we'll reveal why even well-intentioned spiritual people fail to collapse timelines, the quantum miscommunication between intention and field, and how to realign not with effort, but with emotional congruence, because the field is listening, just not to what you thought. Once you hear what it hears, everything shifts. You've felt this before: a moment when the outside looks fine. You're focused, organized, hopeful, yet inside something's off. A subtle tension, a quiet resistance, as if your body isn't convinced. That's when the quantum field tunes in, not to your plan, not to your words, but to what you're unconsciously transmitting: visceral, emotional, energetic. This is where the whole thing either coheres or collapses. Many imagine the universe like a parent rewarding effort and discipline. The quantum field is neither parental nor moral. It is mathematical. It calculates coherence and reflects resonance, responding to signal, not strategy. And that signal is always now. Modern neuroscience and quantum biology describe this as state-dependent encoding. Your body stores expectations and memories shaped by repeated emotional frequencies. So if you visualize abundance, but rehearse scarcity emotionally, the field echoes scarcity back, not to punish you but to mirror your state. Think of walking into a room where a tuning fork vibrates at 432 Hz. Another fork tuned to that frequency will begin to vibrate too. No touch, no force, just resonance. That's manifestation. The field doesn't grant wishes, it responds to coherence. When intention, emotion, and embodiment align, you become a broadcast tower, and everything tuned to that frequency moves toward you, not because you asked, but because you vibrated. Here's the paradox, see, once you try to be high frequency, you've already lost it. Trying is resistance, wanting signals absence, performing betrays insecurity, and the field registers all of it. That's why many people plateau. They manifest from the mind while the body clings to fear, separation, and lack. Words say one thing, the field, that electromagnetic sphere around you, tells another story. Make it concrete. You write, "I am abundant," in your journal every morning, but your chest tightens and you watch the clock, waiting for proof. That tightness, the tension, is your real signal. The conscious mind speaks words. The subconscious, which drives about 95% of your signal, speaks emotion, and emotion is magnetic. As Joe Dispenza teaches, elevated emotion married to clear intention is the formula for creation. Many practice only intention and skip emotional rehearsal. They declare while emotionally vibrating the opposite, like dialing the right number but whispering into the wrong phone. The field doesn't read future tense. There is no "I will" in energy's language. It reflects the now. If you're eternally in a state of becoming, you never arrive. If you're always reaching, you broadcast absence, and it remains absent, obedient to your signal. Worse, some use manifestation as performance for safety. Believing worth arrives through achievement. Chasing results to feel okay radiates lack. The field doesn't respond to effort, it responds to energetic posture. If your posture is grasping, trying, earning, you push what you want away. So what's the fix? Move from performer to broadcaster. Stop proving, start transmitting. Stop acting as if, start embodying as is. The most powerful manifester is not the one who knows every technique, but the one who needs the fewest. Because their frequency speaks louder than their actions. Their coherence collapses timelines and the universe must respond. Next we'll examine identity. Your self-concept and emotional blueprint is the code the field hears most. We'll begin to dissolve the identity that keeps broadcasting struggle even when intentions are pure. Change the signal, and the field has no choice but to echo it. Ask yourself, who are you before you start manifesting? Not your desires or visualizations, but the unconscious identity you carry. That subtle, often invisible identity is the source code the field responds to. Not your dreams or affirmations, but the energetic assumption of self you bring into every room and ritual. Manifestation then becomes energetic architecture. Your frequency is built in your nervous system, in the stories you repeat, in the emotional cycles you rehearse, and in how you expect life to respond before it does. That is your vibrational identity, more potent than any technique. Consider you can rise at 5, light candles, meditate 45 minutes, and repeat, "I am abundant," 100 times, yet if your body carries the blueprint of someone rejected or forced to hustle for love, your signal will read contraction, not coherence. You'll operate from someone still trying to become, not someone who already is. That is the silent saboteur of manifestation. Identity works vibrationally. Every repeated thought paired with emotion wires a neurochemical loop. Over time the brain defaults to the familiar past. Dispenza calls this the familiar past, a state where your future simply repeats your past unconsciously. Identity isn't just in the mind, it's somatic, in breath, posture, and the micro-contractions that occur when someone says your name. Your body remembers who you've been. Without interrupting that loop, you'll manifest what you're used to being, not what you desire. That's why high vibe practices sometimes stop working. They're being applied from an old identity. It's like installing new software on an old operating system. The signal glitches. So how do you change it? First, catch the micro moments you slip back into old patterns, the doubt, the compulsion, the scanning for signs rather than radiating certainty. Most aren't aware these slips a sigh, a shrinking, a hesitation. These micro expressions are clues you've re-entered an identity the field cannot support. Your new timeline can't attach to your old self, and the field knows this. It resists delivering new outcomes to those still embodying expired identities, not punishment, but preservation. The solution isn't forcing new beliefs. It's embodying a new frequency until it's no longer an act. This isn't faking, it's vibrational rehearsal. Act as if until it becomes as is. Start small. Sit in stillness not to attract, but to observe. Feel the version of you who no longer chases. Breathe with them. Walk like them. Ask, what would I no longer do if I truly believed I already were who I claimed to be? Then do less of those things. New identity isn't costume or vibe. It's frequency. When thoughts, emotions, and actions align to that frequency, you stop seeking confirmation, you become it. You stop looking for signs and instead are the sign. Next, we'll introduce a simple practice that rewires identity gently, a short daily ritual that requires presence, not props or hours. You'll learn how to transmit a clean signal from your core. The field doesn't need convincing, it needs your coherence. When that shifts, life organizes around you naturally, effortlessly, instantly. There is a small, near imperceptible moment when the shift begins. You're no longer performing rituals to get something, nor saying affirmations to prove belief. You're simply being. That sweet spot is where the field answers before you notice the change. It doesn't take hours or a script. It starts with one transmission. Clean, honest, emotionally congruent. We call it the coherence pulse, a 90-second practice that realigns your identity signal with your chosen timeline. How it works: wait before your phone, before scrolling or consuming yesterday's news. Sit, eyes open or closed, it doesn't matter. Transmit before you receive. Take a deep inhale. On the exhale, imagine your chest expanding not only with air but with signal. You're not breathing, you're sending. Choose 3 words. Not possessions, but states: certain, open, magnetic, peaceful, worthy, complete. Whisper them, feel them, let your body match. Then visualize those frequencies pulsing outward, not pleading, not hoping, knowing. You're not asking the field, you're stating, this is who I am today. This is the signal I send. This is the version the field will meet. Most finish a ritual and revert to old patterns. They perform alignment and default to contraction. With the pulse, you anchor identity before the world tells you who you are. You set the tone. You transmit the code. Subtle shifts follow, posture relaxes, breath steadies, decisions clarify. You say no without guilt, yes without fear, because you no longer respond to the old field built by past frequency. You now move through a field you create moment by moment. You didn't chase it. You became the signal it couldn't ignore. Here's the invitation. Practice this for 7 mornings before outside energies touch you. Let that be your broadcast. To anchor it further, mark this moment. Tell your future self the signal has changed. Comment below, I am the signal. Not to speed manifestation, but because you understand the field never needed your effort. It needed coherence. Next we'll show how to live from that coherence across the day. In conversations, choices, doubts, and distractions. Not by fighting them but by becoming immune to their frequency. When you stop chasing, you start collapsing timelines. You pulse the field with coherence, and for a while, 5 minutes, an hour, everything feels lighter and aligned. Then a message triggers doubt, a delay tempts anxiety, an old pattern tugs you back into the self you're outgrowing. This is the test not of willpower, but energetic stability. The field doesn't test to punish but reflects where your broadcast cracks. Many unconsciously collapse back into old timelines, not from failure but from insufficient anchoring. What if holding required no force? What if alignment was remembrance rather than discipline? You don't fight old patterns, you consistently signal the new self. Your frequency is maintained by silent agreements with yourself throughout the day. Small decisions, tiny responses, emotional signatures. Most expect quantum shifts via big moments, but timelines change when tiny choices stop contradicting your new identity. A message arrives that would normally contract you. Instead you pause, breathe, smile, and remember, I am the signal. That pause is not passive. It recalibrates. It tells the field you will no longer react from history, but respond from alignment. Another temptation to rush. You ask, would the version of me who already has this feel urgency? If no, you embody that no. You slow. You trust the pulse. You transmit, not grab. These moments accumulate into a new energetic posture. Posture is power. It tells the field you are safe enough to allow, certain enough not to prove, already what you seek. Then timelines accelerate. One more layer. Your environment should mirror your frequency, not test it, not to isolate, but to curate spaces, people, and inputs that reinforce your chosen state. Ask what music supports the you embody. What scent, texture, light signals safety in the now? Who are 3 people in your orbit that speak to the future you? Which thoughts will you no longer entertain because they don't belong to this signal? This is energetic hygiene, frequency stewardship. If you slip, return to breath, not to calm but to broadcast. Say your 3 words and pulse again. Become the broadcaster who's unavailable for anything else. Over time this stops being practice and becomes baseline. You become emotionally resistant to chaos, anchored, not numb, sovereign, not robotic. The field begins to bend, organize, and deliver. Not because you pushed harder, but because you stayed still when you once flinched, stayed open when you braced, stayed certain when you used to question. That changes timelines. Finally, surrender is not weakness, but the last phase of transmission. When you stop needing results, the result begins needing you. The final truth techniques and rituals dissolve into something quieter and more powerful. When you forget outcome, when your frequency becomes whole and internally aligned, the field mirrors you, not as a reward, but as reflection. Real surrender is a vibrational decision, giving in to the now while still acting with clarity, soft eyes, sharp spirit, calm action with zero tension. Ironically, when you stop needing the thing starts looking for you, because the field responds to freedom, freedom from attachment, not from effort. When you aren't entangled in when or how, your frequency becomes clear, potent, inevitable. Neville Goddard called it living in the wish-fulfilled, being now the version who no longer asks. In that instant, time collapses, synchronicities, doors, calls, remembered faces, sudden ideas. None of it feels like you did anything because in truth you didn't. You became. That is the difference between performance and power, force and flow, trying and transmitting. As you leave this piece, don't add effort. Subtract noise. Exhale. Trust that what's meant for you doesn't need convincing. It needs coherence. Let today be the day you stop using energy to get somewhere and start using it to become someone. The self who doesn't perform for the field, but fluently speaks its language. When that happens, everything you imagined orbits you. Not because you chased it, but because you tuned to truth. You were it all along. If something stirred, clicked, or helped you remember your core, you're already shifting, and you're not alone. This is not a video. It's a frequency where science meets soul and the signal strengthens in community. If this vibration resonates, subscribe not for more content, but because this is a movement, and you belong to it.